Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're totally demystifying the history of Western philosophy. But, we're not doing it in some dusty, boring lecture hall. Nope, we are going to view thousands of years of human thought through the lens of a progressively chaotic Friday night out at your local bar. It's basically the ultimate collision between high-minded theory and sticky floors.
Right before we even think about ordering our first round, this quote perfectly sets the stage for what we're exploring today. Aristotle famously said, "All philosophy begins with wonder." But what he totally left out is that this intellectual wonder inevitably ends in a staggering bar tab and a full-blown epistemological crisis. So grab a stool, because things are about to get weird.
Here's our pub crawl itinerary for tonight. Number 1, the problem of the bar. Number 2, the ancients, ordering reality. Number 3, the moderns, epistemological blackout. And finally, number 4, last call, existential hangovers. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the problem of the bar.
The brilliant premise of our source material here is that the carefully constructed systems of Western thought ultimately have to compete with karaoke night and Jaeger bombs. I mean, think about it. The great minds of history really aren't that different from the guy crying in the bathroom at 11 p.m. over whether free will actually exists. Ultimately, they're both just desperately trying to figure out what it is we are doing here. And in a bar, the truth gets sloppy, which makes it literally the best place to test these grand theories.
Moving right along to Section 2, the ancients, ordering reality.
First one through the door is Thales of Miletus, and he doesn't just walk in. He literally falls face first into someone's humus because he's too busy staring at the ceiling rafters, demanding a drink that represents the foundational substance of the universe. For him, that's the arche. He insists that absolutely everything, the bar stools, your existential dread, and for sure his whiskey, is just water that went through an identity crisis.
And this perfectly illustrates the comedic horror of taking your own metaphysical theories way too literally. Check this out. After drinking 7 glasses of tap water and declaring that his bladder is just water returning to its eternal source, he wanders into the alley to pee while stargazing and just drops right into an open well. The universe, it seems, has a pretty dark sense of humor when it comes to philosophers.
Now, it's super fascinating to pit two titans of early philosophy against each other here. On the left, we've got Heraclitus. He's literally weeping because he realizes the whiskey he just ordered is already decaying. He insists that reality is just a constant war of opposites, and that you can't even step into the same bar twice. On the right, Parmenides. He's just standing perfectly still outside the door for 45 minutes because he genuinely believes motion is an illusion. To him, an empty glass isn't empty at all. It's already full of eternal, unchanging being.
Then, of course, Plato walks in. He takes one look around at the sticky stools and the broken jukebox and instantly concludes we are all just chained in a bootleg reality. He completely refuses to enjoy himself, insisting that everything we see is merely a shadow of the true, perfect form of the bar that exists in some higher dimension. So instead of enjoying a real beer, he thinks we're all just drinking shadows.
Let's jump ahead to Section 3, the moderns, epistemological blackout.
Enter René Descartes. Descartes gets completely stuck at the door of the bar in this massive paranoid loop. He refuses to step inside because he starts doubting everything. Minute 1, he looks at his hands and wonders if they're even real. By minute 20, he suspects an evil demon might be tricking him into believing the bar exists at all. He is just desperately trying to strip away every single assumption until he can find one foundational truth he can actually trust.
The absolute deadpan punchline here is that Descartes finally proves he exists with his famous cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. He realizes that because he's doubting, he must be a thinking thing. But here's the catch. Because he still can't trust his physical taste buds to confirm that the drink he ordered isn't actually a demonic illusion or, poison, he gets kicked out onto the street. He's just left sitting on the curb to rethink all of human knowledge from scratch.
Spinoza, on the other hand, he's sitting perfectly content at a table. And why? Because he believes absolutely everything is determined. Ordering water, being sad, accepting reality, it's all just part of an infinite causal chain. He believes every spilled drink and every rude bartender is just a mathematically determined necessary ripple in the infinite ocean of God or nature. You don't have free will, but realizing that actually liberates you from being angry about it.
So the crucial turning point is when Immanuel Kant arrives precisely on schedule at 5:47 p.m. and just immediately ruins the night. He points out that you can never actually experience the noumenal beer, that is, the beer as it exists in ultimate reality, completely independent of you. You can only ever experience the phenomenal beer, which is just the version your mind actively constructs using categories like space, time, and causation.
But Kant doesn't stop at ruining the physics of the bar. He goes right ahead and ruins the social dynamics, too. When a woman kindly offers to buy him a drink, he's horrified. According to his strict moral law, the categorical imperative, an action only has true moral worth if it is done entirely out of duty. This completely strips the fun and human warmth out of the bar. If she's buying it just because she wants to, it simply doesn't count.
Kant then pays his tab with exact change because, well, paying debts can be universalized. He leaves the bar exactly at 7:47 p.m. without ever experiencing a single ounce of joy. However, he leaves perfectly satisfied that he upheld the objective goodness of rational existence.
Which brings us to Section 4, Last Call, Existential Hangovers.
George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel bursts in and just starts pacing the floor, screaming that the bar itself is a necessary moment in the self-actualization of the world's spirit. He points to an empty glass. That's the thesis. He points to a full bottle. That's the antithesis. Then he pours the wine into the glass, creating a synthesis. He completely clears the room with an hour-long lecture on historical dialectics, insisting that even the drunkest patron is part of the rational unfolding of freedom.
Sitting in the absolute darkest corner of the pub is Arthur Schopenhauer. He actually turns to a nearby happy, engaged couple and tells them that their love is just a biological trick designed by a blind, irrational force, the will to live, just to produce more sufferers. He calmly explains that their happiness is merely a temporary pause in endless pain. Without a doubt, he is the absolute worst person to share a pint with.
Then we've got Søren Kierkegaard, who walks in and out of the bar multiple times under totally different aliases. He is so utterly terrified of making a choice because choosing one thing forecloses all other infinite possibilities that he's just paralyzed by existential dread. Should he embrace the aesthetic life of pleasure, the ethical life of rules, or make the absurd, irrational leap of faith? In the end, he just leaves his glass of water on the bar untouched, like a monument to his own crushing anxiety.
Karl Marx walks in, and he doesn't even bother ordering a drink. Instead, he immediately identifies the means of production. He climbs right onto a table to declare to the bartender that they are suffering from 4 stages of alienation. He points right at the bar owner in the corner, sipping cognac, and loudly announces that the bartender's unpaid surplus value is being systematically stolen.
By framing capitalist exploitation squarely around the economics of a literal bar tab and who actually owns the taps and the bottles, Marx turns a simple Friday night out into a fiery, furious call for a structural revolution of the means of production.
And guys, that brings us to the end of the night. After thousands of years of systemic logic, brilliant deductions, arguing over whether the glass is even real, and crying in the bathroom, we really have to ask, did anyone actually figure out the answer? Did any of these brilliant minds solve the drunk guy's question at the end of the bar? You know, perhaps the only true philosophical wisdom is just paying your tab, stepping out into the cold night air, and admitting you still just don't know the answer. But I have to ask you, after looking at all these structured arguments and wild theories, whose philosophy would you actually want to grab a drink with?